Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I'm Sean Woodland, joined by Lauren Khalil. Lauren, how you doing?
I am great. My voice is coming back. I had
Fantastic.
almost 12 hours of sleep last night following
even-
Tommy from last
that's-
week.
Being dead to me. Tommy, how are you? Joined
I
by
feel
Tommy
great.
Marquez. Should we say featuring Tommy Marquez or still joined by Tommy Marquez? You want to be featured?
What is this for?
I'm Sean Woodland, joined by Lauren Khalil. Lauren, how you doing? And featuring Tommy Marquez, or would you just be and joined by Tommy Marquez?
Hey, whatever sets your heart on fire, you know?
All right, we'll say joined by Tommy Marquez. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. I meant to text you last night, but right before I went to bed, the Sharks were up 2-1. I didn't see how that game.
They won in a shootout because the Kings are terrible. So
I walked out. I was gonna say something, and I walked out and it was 2-0. And I looked up, and my dad's like, "It's 2-0," and I was like, "Not for long." And then right before they lit the lamp, and then got a power play to end, and I was like, not going to stay up for this debacle. So
I was texting with Ted Ramey, who, a friend of ours who's done some broadcast stuff, works for the Sharks. I was like, the Kings will see your terrible defense and raise you that awful entry zone coverage. So, yeah, they did not play well. We got Brent Fikowski coming up here really fast. We're going to get to him in just a second. But first, we want to thank our sponsor for today, and that is Thursday. Thursday is a big reason why Lauren Khalil slept for half a day.
The only reason why I slept for half the day.
And it's the reason why I am getting the most out of the very little sleep that I get. But when I wake up, I feel good. I don't have as much trouble getting to sleep. It is an absolute game changer, and you guys need to get on board with their PM Recovery Collagen. It's a collagen-based drink protein powder that helps with joint and connective tissue repair, has ingredients like magnesium, L-theanine, and GABA, and those all are there to help calm your central nervous system and support deep and REM sleep. It tastes great. Perfect little nightcap I look forward to every night. And like I said, just an absolute game changer when it comes to sleep. Like I have been able to consistently get up earlier, work out in the morning because of Thursday, because like I said, I am getting the most out of my sleep. I panicked the other night and didn't have any. And I was really sick. So not like it would have helped a bunch. You can still probably hear it. I'm a little froggy. I've had the worst cough in my life coming back from Miami. It was awful. So Thursday. Oh, and so I took Thursday on the way home. I can't sleep on planes. I slept on the plane. I slept like 3 hours on the plane because of Thursday. That's how good this
We're
stuff
not all like Tommy Marquez and can sleep in any corner of the world.
No. So go to Thursday.
I bring Thursday on the plane.
Thursday.com, THIRDZY.com. Use our code TEF and you will save 20% and absolutely experience better sleep as soon as that stuff shows up at your door.
Yep.
So scan the QR code on your screen. If you're watching, if you're listening, Thursday.com, and the code is TEF. Well, really fast before we get to Brent, Lauren, how was Fittest of the Coast?
Oh, it was so great. The only downfall was that when I went to South Carolina, I anticipated that the weather would be nice.
Nope.
And it was like 30 degrees. So better than the 8 degrees that I'm facing now in New York. But overall, the event was so well run. Almost the entire weekend was on time, and they had more than 1,400 athletes that competed throughout the weekend. So like kudos to those event organizers. This was their 5th year doing having Fittest at the Coast. And I mean, that team hustles, and it was just such a good experience. The athletes seem happy. The volunteers, amazing. Judging, everybody put in a lot of hard work. So it was good.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's bring in the man who just finished second at Wodapalooza.
Hey.
Brent Fikowski. How you doing, man?
Good. You can call me special guest. You can say featuring.
Okay. Yeah. How is this? Featuring. I think it should be. I think since you're the guest, it should be featuring Brent Fikowski.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the feature.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's funny hearing you guys. Oh, yeah, I feel like everyone I know either just got over, just started, or in the middle of some sort of cough or runny nose or flu.
I know a ton of people who are at Wodapalooza who got sick.
I mean, I was rough a little bit after Fitfest for kind of all of December there, and then leading into Wodapalooza, I was just kind of rounding the corner. And so I'm pretty good right now, but my wife's a little under the weather from Wodapalooza. So.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know what it is, but I've been there 3 years and 2 times I've come home sick.
It's the hot,
Yeah,
cold, all the change in pressure, all the rain,
Yeah.
and
That's
warm,
weird.
and
A lot of people.
yeah,
A lot of people.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Well, this was the first time, and we talked to you before the event with Dylan Malitsky from Wodapalooza, but the first
Yep.
time that the PFAA and Wodapalooza had formally teamed up. I know you guys are still working on your official after action report and debrief and everything, but just wanted to get you on to just briefly sort of top line your initial impressions of how the first partnership went.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot. You know, it was the first time. I think if I give us a rating out of 10 in regards to what a partnership like that could look like in the future, I'd say we were like a 4. But given like the situation and the sort of the specifics that we committed to, maybe like, you know, a 7 or an 8 out of 10. So, but we learned a lot. And, you know, I think there were a lot of good things that happened that maybe would not have happened if, you know, we hadn't become involved and we hadn't sort of decided on those 5 pages of kind of commitments from the Wodapalooza team beforehand. Some good things came of that. And then some things that, you know, mistakes that might have just been made that were just straight up mistakes that, you know, maybe they and us can do better. And then a few just blind spots as well, like things like, oh, geez, we need you know, that's something that, you know, we need to talk to Wodapalooza about. Like an example might be like the ramp going into the water. And so it wasn't like a huge issue, but it was kind of this weird like gray area where, you know, we're briefed on the event. We're like, Kate, sounds fun. And then right before we take the floor, they're like, okay, you have to enter in feet first into the water. And we're kind of like taking the, you know, you're taking the floor, about to set your double under rope down. I'm like, what? Yeah, enter feet first. I'm like, okay, like what does that look like? Okay, you know, so I'm like, whatever. So I set up my stuff, I'm doing my bike, and then I'm kind of going down the ramp, and the judge, there's like a person there like, go slow, feet first. And then in front of me, I see like Ricky dive, Roman dive. Everyone's diving. So I'm like, well, I'm going to dive. So I dove. And so it's like, you know, finding that, okay, you know, either like a very strict penalty on like what is and what is not allowed, because it's, you know, but ideally you create an environment that allows athletes to go very fast, as safe as possible. Right. So instead of having like, oh, you know, like barbed wire, be careful. It's like, no, like no barbed wire. You know, not there's barbed wire. But you see that in like, you know, Tough Mudder events where they have barbed wire and they're like, oh, army crawl. It's like, no, like it doesn't have to be barbed wire. Right. You can have people go fast and army crawl and just have like a net where it's like, oh, you can't. So, you know, there's things that went well. And then things that, you know, some blind spots, and then a few things that maybe we could have done a little better. But we're, you know, what we're committed to is doing like a really thorough debrief. We sent out a survey to all the athletes that we, that are PFA athletes, trying to get as much feedback from them and their coaches and the agents as possible. And then, you know, having like a full meeting. We have one on the books already, but probably another one with the Wodapalooza team, and trying to be collaborative and not just kind of throw a bunch of stuff at them. And sometimes, you know, whether it's with CrossFit Inc. or other events, you know, maybe they'll survey athletes and they're like, okay, thanks. And then you don't really know what that turns into. If you're like, are you just going to make the same mistakes again? You know, how much weight are you putting into these like remarks? Are you just rolling your eyes? Or whereas now we have like a much better line of communication, so we can hopefully create out of some problems that happen, like, you know, obviously the rain, right? Like, you know, what can we do to set them up for success and have some very clear and public defined rules and like procedures on what to do, you know, for example, when it rains. So
did it feel like this year compared to the last 11 years, because this was the 12th year, gosh, like time flies, did it feel like there was more positive change this year in comparison to past years, or they were just like new situations or problems that, like you said, there were some blind spots?
It's hard for me to say, because obviously I'm not going to be completely unbiased or biased. Like, I also, there can be a bias when you have a good comp. Like when I did well, I'm like, yeah, I was sick. You know, so like for example, I spoke to someone who went to Dubai, and one person was like, oh yeah, you know, it was pretty good this year, and they had a good weekend. And then I spoke to someone else who didn't have as good a weekend, mediocre, and they're like, yeah, it wasn't very well run. And so, you know, it's like, which person do you put some weight into? I do think, like, you know, if I think of compared to prior years, and I have to talk to Wodapalooza, because I didn't have any say in the programming at all. No one from the PFA did. So I don't know how they decided the workouts and so on, and like the switches they made. But it seemed, at least from my perspective, that they had a very clear plan for every workout if there was rain. So it's like, we have our, like, hopefully we're going to do this workout if everything's fine. and then there's like a very clear pivot as opposed to, oh man, it's raining. Maybe we'll do this. And there's this kind of like feeling of scrambling, and whether or not, you know, me or someone else liked those switches is another question for another day. But what's interesting about, you know, at first they changed the workouts. I was sitting next to someone in the brief when they changed the first two on the first day, and they go, oh man, like those are completely different workouts. Like this is kind of bullshit. And I'm like, we got to understand that all these workouts are made up anyway. You know, like, so, you know, we were given the first 5, and, you know, then you're sort of in this mindset of like, oh, that is what they're defining as a complete test of fitness. That is a good comp. And then they switch 2 of them. And now you're like, oh, well, that's not a good comp anymore, but it's like relative to what? You know, it's like, you know, like that, for example, the Cordadito changed drastically, right? Totally different workout. Both of those are really good and hard workouts. They're just, one is a little heavier, higher skill. One was more of like a gross kind of burner, burpees, front squat. So it's just like they're 2 very different workouts, both good tests of fitness. One was just more suitable for rain, and one was more suitable for dry. And then obviously the strict pull-ups, like you're in this situation where you either have a lot less upper body pulling and like hanging over the course of the weekend, or you have, you know, chest to bars and bar muscle, someone's going to slip off and hurt themselves, or you do strict pull-ups and, you know, the judging's inconsistent. And so I don't know, like, I think that's a question, that's part of a discussion to have. And if you had a longer weekend, you could, like, with, let's say the weekend was 4 days, you could have maybe like sprinkled in some chest to bars later. Do you know what I mean? In a workout that originally didn't have them. And you'd be like, oh, you know, in the swimming workout now, you're going to start with 50 chest to bar or something, right? If there was room for that. But there weren't enough days and there weren't enough workouts to move that around. So I guess they decided like, hey, let's keep some upper body gymnastics, body weight pulling. And they kept the strict pull-ups, which weren't consistently judged, which is unfortunate. But it's that balance between like safety, fairness, and then like a balanced test of fitness. So yeah, so it's a no-lose situation there with the rain.
It seems like a pretty tough tightrope to walk overall, but I do like your approach on they're all just made up workouts anyways, because that's very Matthew McConaughey, Lincoln Navigator commercial, you know, we're all just bugs on a rock floating in a void kind of thing. But I'm curious, where do you think the PFAA's role is on things outside of, I guess, necessarily the programming? Because some of those things feel like they pertain. The ability to, I guess, deploy some of it seems like a size and a scope thing as far as like the whole competition is concerned, because the elites, while, you know, you may have this plan of action to switch, it doesn't happen in a vacuum because there's 40 other divisions going on. And I don't know if you guys want to wade into those waters, or if that's something that you want to take a more heavy-handed approach in, you know, the event organizational side as well.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you ask that again?
Yeah. So, well, what sort of role does the PFAA want to take in that? You know, whether it's just the programming, or getting more involved in things like event organization, like for a scope of Wodapalooza, right? Because it's so much different because there's 40 divisions going on, and your contingency plan isn't just affecting one division; it's 45 other ones.
Yeah, I mean, you know, right now, yeah, I can't really say for sure. I mean, we don't currently have like aspirations to start taking over like a bunch of processes that Wodapalooza has been doing for 11 years, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, if the situation calls for it in this comp or another comp, then, you know, maybe we would get some personnel that are more experienced. And I think like really the thing we're trying to drill down is, you know, to better allow competitions to understand the athlete perspective and to fix problems that are, you know, too common and feel like quite easily fixable. And, you know, even like partnering, like I had a conversation when I competed for 2 days, and then I had a bunch of conversations the next 2 days, kind of networking as they call it. And I talked with Ed, who's, you know, spearheading the AFJ, the judges, and, you know, we want to work on getting like movement standards standard, right? So any comp that wants to use them can, you know, it's like, oh, if we're doing a ring muscle up or parallel bar dip or handstand walk, like what is the standard? And you can just kind of copy and paste it, do it at your brief, and we know those are good standards. And There's plenty of movements that, depending on the comp you go to, have slightly different standards. And between the judges' experience, the experienced judges' experience, and then the experienced athletes, we are the ones who are going to know, like, hey, for a sandbag clean, like, what are the best standards if we're doing like a 150-pound bag for reps? Like, what are the standards that are easy to judge, easy to do, and like still hard, like still difficult? I mean, that's the point of the sport. But you don't need to create an unnecessarily complex standard. So yeah, to answer your question, I mean, these events are so complicated, and even with something like the rain, you realize like, oh geez, we already have to do all these movement standards. They don't exist, right? You already have to. In an ideal situation, we'd have kind of like a template for like, what is good programming? You need a long workout, you need a short workout, you need a heavy workout, a light workout, a gymnastics, and endurance, whatever, right? Like ideally those would be in some way codified. And then it's like, oh, you need a whole different set of rules regarding like the weather. It's like, if it's raining, here's the list of movements you do and don't do and why, right? Or like, here's the type of equipment. And, and because really like when you look at our sport, we're doing kettlebell sport, we're doing Olympic lifting, powerlifting, gymnastics. Those are indoor sports, right? Like those sports happen inside. And so then you add the rain to those sports, and you can't really max out your snatch in the rain. You can't really do kettlebell sport for reps in the rain. Even rowing, they call it indoor rowing, right? The concept 2 rower, like it's the indoor rowing world championships. And so, you have to figure out, okay, if it's pouring rain or a bit of rain, what are the movements we can and can't do? And, maybe there's like equipment solutions. It's like, hey, is there some sort of like rubber coated pull-up bar we could use for like old school kipping pull-ups? And then you could actually grip it in the rain. But then it's like, okay, can you expect Wodapalooza to have an extra pull-up bar for every lane and, exchange them in the morning? So yeah, it's like, there's a lot of things that ideally could and would be done, because right now a lot of the comps it's still kind of the Wild West, right? And we're trying to start those steps. We talk about how young the sport is, but how far we've come in the short amount of time. But it's this sort of thankless work, hopefully, that can just kind of slowly nudge it towards some standardization and professionalization. And then an event like the one Lauren was at in Southern Carolina, they can kind of piggyback off of the work we're doing and just kind of copy and paste a lot of the learnings that we have in the standards, and hopefully, copy and paste 95% of it to what works for them.
So Brent, I'm curious, like with the work that you're doing with the PFAA and knowing that the weather created some of the biggest challenges, is there a conversation happening whether competitions should even entertain the idea of having their events outside if there isn't a contingency plan to move inside?
Yeah, I mean, like at this time, I haven't had that conversation. It's that weird thing, right? I mean, I don't really. Yeah, I mean, I think Wodapalooza will be outside next year. I mean, right? And I think the SoCal event, I think it's on Huntington Beach, right?
Yeah.
And that's sick. But it is if it's not raining, right? Which is the same with any outdoor sport, right? It's no different than signing up for a triathlon. Like you're like hoping it doesn't rain, and sometimes in triathlons they rain, and you have to bike a little slower maybe around the corners. Yeah, it's a weird thing, right? There's no way financially you could expect a competition to have a backup of a covered area, right? Like it's like, oh, we have this like empty stadium next door and we'll just rent it for the weekend just in case, and we'll have a full rig set up there. Just, it's like these events, we always do all the games, and regionals never made money. Like I'm like, I haven't seen the income and balance statements of these companies, but I'm assuming they're telling the truth. Because I've talked to smaller event organizers, and it's like a labor of love to put on a small event. Usually it's not a huge profitable endeavor. So yeah, for them to expect them to have a secondary venue that's essentially not being used, because if you have both being used, like at the games, then one of them, they're both always in use. Like in Wodapalooza, you have 3 stages, and it's just 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's realistic to just say, hey, moving forward, every event's inside. I just don't think it's going to happen. Nor I don't think it's something that I even necessarily want, because some of my best memories are competing outside. But obviously when it rains, like the programming has to change, and then it turns into something that like looks and feels and tastes from a programming perspective, like from a breadth test of fitness, is going to look a lot different, right? You're just not going to have a bunch of the higher skill movements. that we like to see and everybody wants to see. And maybe that's just like, oh, you know, it was a rain weekend. It's kind of like, you know, in football, aren't they like, oh, you know, Brett Favre could never play in the snow, or, you know, that kind of, there's those narratives around that. And so you might see certain athletes that are like better at low skill stuff, and they're like, oh, I hope it rains. there's no bar muscle ups, and there's no jerks, and there's no snatches, and it's just deadlifts and burpees, and they win. And but I think there has to be like some pretty hard and fast rules around, hey, if it's raining, these are the movements we don't do. And then the other thing is potentially like, are there solutions to equipment problems that are relatively inexpensive? And that would be like, you know, you'd have to approach someone like Rogue and, you know, have like an idea and see if they'd be willing to make it. And then if an event like Wodapalooza would be willing to like bring that, you know, whether that's a cover or like a different type of pull-up bar grip, so you can at least still do some like old school kipping pull-ups with like rubber handles, or, you know, maybe something different to pick up that it's like, because, you know, something like, let's say squat snatches might not be great in the rain, but it's like, oh, if you had a dumbbell with a rubber handle, you know, I don't know. And different flooring. Again, that's equipment problems, but that's more money as well, right? And money doesn't just grow on trees.
I know you guys are going to do a much more thorough review of this, and that's still to come. But I wanted to ask you just about your personal experience and what this means moving forward. I mean, you look at your last 3 competitions and where you finished. Hang on one second. Got a sick kid at home who's now telling me.
Poor Max.
Anyway, but given your last 3 competitions and where you have finished, I know you're someone who's always looking at tweaking his training and his preparation. But given what you've done over these, you know, past 3 competitions, how much tweaking are you going to do, if any, now heading into the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really good run. And I feel like the improvements I've made since Wodapalooza last year, you know, I feel like are pretty noticeable. Like there were 2 events in particular last year that I had like okay finishes, and that usually go well for me. And those type of events went a lot better for me this year. Like last year, there was a rope climb lunge workout that I came like 12th in. And then the swim, I was like 2-3 minutes behind Ricky and Roman. And then this year I was like in the mix on both of those kind of workouts. You know, it's this balance between like doing what's working and then constantly like refining based on the same principles. So, you know, I'd say confidence is really high, I guess is the best way to put it. There's a few things that me and my coach, we had like a bunch of conversations this last week, and we're going to try some new, like kind of like higher intensity interval stuff, because I feel like my like steady state conditioning is pretty solid, and that's what has been a focus. But some of the like really high intensity, like ramping up and then going into like still a lot of pain and then ramping up again, can still bring problems for me. So hopefully do that without losing the like 5K run results I've had. So there's some like subtle tweaks, but we're trying not to reinvent the wheel. And like the training, I guess, like, let me put it to you this way. From the outside looking in, if you just like looked at the training on paper, it's probably going to look very similar, but there'll be some like subtle tweaks where it's, you know, noticeable to us. Yeah. I'm excited though. Long story short, I'm excited, and like, a lot of confidence, and body's feeling pretty good. So yeah.
Do you still get fired up about the Open? Like, is that just a thing that you do? Like, what is that to you now?
Yeah, I don't get as fired up about it. It's, you know, it's honestly, it's almost like a lesson in, like focus, as far as like, don't lose focus on the big thing, which is, you know, semis and the games. So it can be tempting to like, you know, have a little bit of an easier training day Thursday and just do the open workout Friday, and oh, should I redo Monday? And then before you know it, 3 weeks goes by and you're like, ooh, did I really make like long-term progress in those 3 weeks? And that's not to say like I like the Open. I think the Open's really cool. And, you know, for other people, it's like, hell yeah, like do the redo, like take a rest day Thursday, like this is your Super Bowl, like go hard. It's just my priorities are a little different. And so, yeah, it's not as I'll be doing like, you know, my strength building and my conditioning and a lot of machine stuff, a lot of strict stuff. And so those workouts will be pretty painful because I'm not going to be as like sharp in those areas. So it's like if I have to do a bunch of, you know, like 120 bar facing burpees with thrusters, it's gonna hurt. Which is, you just strap up and do it. And the tough thing is that at the time it feels so important.
Yeah.
Like even last year, right? It just, you're like looking at your score and you're like, oh damn it, Pat beat me by 20 reps. And it always feels like so important at the time. And then a month later, quarters happens or semis 2 months, and no one talks about the Open again, right? Like, no one's like, oh, Brent only came this in the Open. Like, no, they're people remember how I did at the games, more or less. Like that's usually kind of the thing that lasts at least a year or more. And it's the Open stuff, at least for me, again, it's more, you can get really wrapped up in like, oh man, I can't believe, I don't know, Nick Matthew crushed that workout. Oh, he's going to be a problem. Like I can like get wrapped up in guys in my region, and it's like, Brent, relax. Like you just competed against him at Wodapalooza. Like, you can hang with him. It's fine. And like, don't redo the workout. Just, do your back squats and your handstand push-ups tomorrow. So that's what it is for me, but that's not to say that's what it should be for everyone. Cause I mean, it can be, I remember doing it in earlier years and like, it was taking it a lot more seriously, and those were really fun times. So,
Well, and maybe speaking to that, like, I don't know, instinct or that roller coaster of emotions you just described, but looking at an event like Wodapalooza, like, do you go in knowing that, hey, like a good result here will help kind of ease my worries coming into the season a little bit, knowing that there's a proximity there, and then kind of maybe going one step further in that, what is there any sort of consciousness or awareness around like how much you really like let it go in those competitions like Wodapalooza? I have a moment in mind that I want to ask you about and follow up, but is it just like, hey, I'm going to go when I get into competition mode, it's full race mode no matter what?
Yeah, I think the best way I can answer that is this sort of this mantra I've been chewing on the last like year or so, and it's like compete every time like it's the last time you'll compete, but learn like you're going to compete for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I went to Rogue or the games this year or Wodapalooza, I was preparing for those competitions. Like, my training was still a little more geared towards the games, but in the week before and during the week of the competition and stuff, it's like my focus is like, let's do everything I can to try to, get as many points as I can, whether that's win, first, podium, whatever it is. And so it's not really around like, oh, this is about building momentum or about building confidence, or maybe like, to psych out this guy because he got me last time. It's more like, hey, this could be the last time you ever compete. Like, what if this is like, this is an opportunity to have the best competition of your life. It's kind of like, that's what it felt like at semis this year. That's what it felt like at the games, at Rogue, at Wodapalooza. So it was less about, and like obviously the lessons I learned this weekend, even at Rogue, like they're really valuable. So I'm glad I competed because I think they're going to help me, be better in the future. But that's that kind of learning versus competing side of things. But in the moment, in the week before and during the weekend, there's certainly no conversations or even any thoughts about like, oh, what does this mean and how will this help me? It's like, let's do everything we can to get close to 100 points in this workout as possible.
Yeah, and I say that because I was standing by the ramp in that wipeout swim event, and I could have sworn you went right over the top of Ricky on the first water entry. It was like everyone was coming down, and they were like slow, 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 and to be fair, it looked like everyone was kind of processing in real time. All right, what's going to happen on this ramp here? It looked like Ricky jumped in, and then you came in right behind him and just like clawed right over the top and just breezed right past him. And I was like, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it looked like it was like a get out of my way, like I'm in full game mode, like gotta let me fly.
I don't remember doing that specifically. I feel like I remember seeing like, guys like porpoising in, like, fully diving in. And I'm like, well, I'm going to, I realize the judges are kind of saying like, slow down, but like, they're not exactly like jumping in and pulling these guys out and punishing them. So I don't know, I guess I'm going to jump like, and to me, like, because I'm a confident diver, it's like, it feels more unsafe for me to go slow. Like I feel, if you just take like 3 steps and hop off, it's like, it could be made of Teflon. I feel like I could still kind of do that. Yeah. And no, I don't remember diving over anyone. I just remember as we kind of approached the first buoy, I think I was beside Roman and we were like fully like doing this for a bit. bumping is racing, but I don't remember doing that to Ricky. Maybe I did. I'll have to watch the live stream again. I wasn't looking for that.
It was a very unique angle that I had, and I'd never. I guess I hadn't paid attention to the water entries that much because it can be kind of chaotic. But like you went right over the top of them, and your first stroke looked like it like patted him on the shoulder and just kind of like have a.
We would in swimming we would do that. We'd goof around where you would grab someone's ankle and fully like you could switch positions with them if you did it right. Where they're swimming and you could fully grab an ankle just like in swim club when you're like 10 years old and stuff.
And that's legal?
No. We would do that's like in training. No, you couldn't.
Oh,
that's what's funny about cross. I mean, in like an actual in like something like triathlon or open water swims, like there's open water swim competitions, there'd be specific rules around like etiquette and the penalties for that etiquette, just like in running, like there's certain rules around, passing and drafting and, there's all that stuff is sort of, like, there's no rules around that really. I'm sure if you did something like that, surely there'd be some sort of uncommon movement clause or something if they could prove it. But yeah, I would never do anything like that. It's not really in my nature to intentionally like grab someone and
pull somebody back.
But I might have.
It would be interesting to see on the live stream.
I don't remember that. I mean, I don't think I dove over anyone. I was making sure I dove in a way that I felt was safe to me and everyone else. But
yeah,
maybe I dove right over him. That'd be cool. If you can find that clip, send it to me. Yeah.
This might be looking too far in advance, but I just keep thinking about how the games has this new venue. We know that either 90 or 95%, according to Dave Castro, is all going to be inside. As you look now, the beginning of the CrossFit Games season, how are you at all changing the way that you train to be more CrossFit specific versus like getting outside and doing a lot more of those odd end things that are required for games training?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question around, you're preparing for what you think is going to happen, right? Like at the end of the day, that's what this sport is. You're making you're not looking at the pyramid of the CrossFit pyramid, right? Like, some people, we don't look at that, right? You make guesses on what you think the programming will be, and you can do that by looking at the past, and you can do that about hints regarding the future. And so when Dave says something like, well, whatever he has said, it's like, what does that actually mean? Does that mean we're going to do one workout a day outside? Does that mean we're going to do half a workout outside? Like what, I don't like, because that could easily be, we do 12 workouts and 4 of them are outside. And he goes, well, that's 90%. He's like, I'm not a statistician, deal with it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you are so true.
But it's true. Cause it's like, well, what are you going to, like, how we're not going to hold them to that. Could be how they could be. It's like, historically at the games, it's what, 50-50, maybe 60-40 or something. So if it's 70-30, he's like, yeah, that's 90, whatever. So it's like,
Math.
how do you, I don't know. Right. And then it's like, yeah. So that's an interesting question. And I mean, something that we've talked about a bit is, and then obviously, a challenging part about that is heat prep, right? It's like, well, is that one workout going to be midday 10K run outside? I would think hopefully not, but if it is, that's basically a question of like who's done a very aggressive heat prep, because it can be done, and who hasn't. Can you still hear me? My heater just turned on. Is it fine?
Yeah.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, sure. It's like pretty loud for me. I mean, yeah, that's a long answer to a question I could answer at even more depth. But I mean, I think if you're listening to this and you're a games athlete, I don't know what to do, right? I mean, it's one thing to prep for the heat in Madison, but it's another thing when it's like, okay, are we actually going to be in air conditioning the whole time? Or are we going to be in like, 110 with humidity? And those are just so, it's very like Madison. Yeah, it's hot, but it's like, you can still function
different
out, you can train for that. See, I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead. Like I'm still just, working on like the basics that would apply to any set of tests essentially. But yeah, that's something that will require more of my attention and kind of research and, maybe even some PFAA action in regards to like, the safety element of, informing us in advance, right? Because just doing that heat prep, like I'm somewhat aware of that, what that would take. And that in and of itself is dangerous. Not to mention, obviously, competing when you're not prepped is also dangerous. But going through that heat prep for a couple of weeks. It's not just like, oh, like hop in a sauna in the evening. It's like, no, you're in it. You have to be in it, and that's that in and of itself has a financial toll if you have to fly and move somewhere for a while, but a physical one as well. So.
As we move into the 2024 season, where do you think the PFAA would like to be more involved with either quarterfinals, semifinals, games, open? Where do you think those opportunities are?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that comes down to, where CrossFit Inc. thinks we can or should fit in, quite frankly. Our focus is, if we have a catch-up call with them here soon, and but they seem to want to keep things internal at the moment, right? And we're here if they want the athlete input on anything and everything, like we have been in the past for them, and however they want to use that, we want to be as involved as they want us to be involved, because I think the harmony and the synergy between the athletes and the sport is an obvious one, right? If the athletes are performing well and they're part of the process, I think the product will be better for everyone. And then also, if scratch our back, we'll scratch yours when it comes to promotion and stuff as well, right? Promotion of the season, and whether that's ticket sales or live stream and stuff. But it's a two-way street, so we'll see. I think a lot of our focus for the PFA is on wrapping up Wodapalooza, and then we were able to meet a lot of other great event organizers from around the world that are running high quality events like Wodapalooza, and see what we can do to. I think it's twofold. Like, one, we want to just help those events improve in any way that they can be, and just use the shared knowledge from other events, and kind of hopefully, like, anything we learn from Wodapalooza, we can make sure is passed on to some other event in October, right? So it's like, hey, these are things that didn't work for Wodapalooza. Like, do these things and don't make these mistakes, and I like codify them. But then also, hopefully, have in a perfect world. Right now, a lot of these events are kind of islands, right? Like, they're their own thing, and it's like someone, oh, Wodapalooza, you did great. Yeah. Does that mean what does that mean? People are like, did that mean you qualify for no, it's just a good payday. And like, I'm happy for it to be that, and it's a great thing, but it's not part of a bigger story, right? It doesn't change my world rank. It doesn't qualify me for any other events. It doesn't get me to Rogue. It doesn't get me to Dubai. It doesn't get me to the games. It doesn't get me to semi. Like, it's just like a one-off thing, which, again, totally fine. Like, I'm not complaining, but I think in a perfect world, there'd be more of a storyline and a thread between events, whether that's like a world rank that has some incentive to it. And so, exploring what that could look like, I think is something we're trying to figure out as well.
I'm thinking back to the Double or Nothing event that started the weekend at Wodapalooza, and you hit what felt like a dozen overhead squats at the end. And when you set the bar down, you're turning around, and it was kind of this funny moment. You're like, that's got to be enough, right? Like, kind of playing to the crowd a little bit. It might just be me, but it seems like you're letting your personality like fly a little bit more on the competition floor, like a little bit more something. And if that's the case, where is that coming from? Is it just comfortability, or if not, like, what is the line for you in terms of just kind of letting yourself go a little bit on the competition floor in those really candid moments like that?
Yeah, I think part of it is I'm enjoying training, and even my mom around Christmas is like, oh, this is the happiest and the most relaxed I've seen you in years. And I think that's just part of it. Part of it's the kid, for sure. She brings a lot of joy to my life. And then I just believe in training. I'm not like as beat down by training as I have been in the past. Not that I was training improperly, but it was just different. Just, I believe in the training, and there's like more energy towards training. And then that kind of, I think, transfers to more excitement and belief in competition. And I think when I'm better prepared, I'm like more excited and stuff. And I think there's this balance between like, believing I can win and like wanting to win, but also just surrendering that and just enjoying it, and just like, hey, I actually perform at my best when I'm having a little bit of fun, and when I'm, just freeing myself to be myself, freeing myself to be my best. And that's, I realize I'm rambling a bit, but what I've learned in the past, there was a little window of time there in about 2019 or so where I was trying to push myself into a different mold as far as like a mindset. Kind of like, you got to win at all costs, and you got to like, suffer, and like this kind of, and that just didn't really suit me. Kind of, like that's sometimes the language and the motifs that you sometimes hear someone like Fraser use, or like Michael Jordan or something. And obviously those guys had a tremendous amount of success, and I was sort of trying that mindset, and it didn't fit me, right? And it would fit some people. It didn't really fit me. And so, you know, focusing on like a lot of small details, and then like still really enjoying it and allowing my like, you know, enjoyment and a little bit of sense of humor to kind of come through in the warm-ups and in the event, and just seems to elicit better performances for me. So it's kind of like a mindful, a very cognizant, subtle change in like a mindset, and then also it's a bleed in from like other areas of my life where I'm just you know, more relaxed and happier.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like just a byproduct of more personal, you know, development outside of training. That's, you know, having, you know, like you just said, like bleed over, and it seems like I don't know, I could be wrong, but is that something that you've had to kind of push back on a little bit? If you default to an analytical type moment, it's very easy to fall into that trap where if you're always trying to pick something to improve on, you're almost never satisfied with what you actually did. And I don't know if you fight that or not.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, what's funny is there was this, again, this was like a realization I had when I was 31 years old. So just 2 years ago now, but it was this idea of like, you know, actually was talking to a beach volleyball player that I looked up to, and now I have a bit of a relationship with. And he said, like, just kind of be like unabashedly yourself. And like that, I think there was a time where I would kind of like resist some of those urges to be analytical, like, oh, that's too much, like just go out there and do your thing or whatever. And now like I realize I just enjoy that. Like, you know, I have like spreadsheets on spreadsheets of stupid things that probably don't matter, but like that actually frees me up to be more relaxed. And doing those things like brings me joy, like creating a spreadsheet for my lengths of my jump ropes in case I need to get a new one and I don't know what length it needs to be. You know, like I don't resist that urge. Like when I had that idea, I was like telling it to my wife, and she's like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm gonna make the list today." And so I'm outside of my measuring tape. Yes, sir, this is a Wendy's. You know, and like that stuff like fires me up and like fills me up and brings me joy. Whereas if I was coaching an athlete and I was telling them all these things to do, they'd be like, that sounds a lot like work. Like that sounds ridiculous, and that stresses me out, all this stuff you're telling me to do. Right. But for me, it does the opposite. And so it's more about like what I've found is, you know, finding the kind of like those sorts of things that bring me energy and make me feel satisfied and stuff like that. And so, you know, even for the snatches, like leading up to that event, you know, I had like a warm up planned, and, you know, my coach and I were just constantly talking about the different weights I was going to hit. And, you know, we were like, yeah, just doing all sorts of stuff, it was a lot. Whereas a lot of athletes would just be like, coach, I'm just going to warm up, and whatever I think I need to hit, that's what I'm going to hit. You know, and I'm like, no, I want to just like, again, like, what if like compete like it's the last time? Like, what if, you know, we were 5 pounds back and, you know, we didn't look at everyone else, or we missed something, and that would haunt me more than, oh, we did too much. Right. So yeah, it's more like that. It's more just finding what kind of works for me. And that's actually made me more relaxed, just like, you know, leaning into the things that I'm naturally prone to do. Just like it's like, oh, do you like those kind of things? Like, do more of it.
Have you ever tried to bring sticky notes on the competition floor?
No, I mean, I have a pretty good memory, but there have been times where I've written stuff on like the back of my hand or my forearm. I brought for the marathon row, I brought in like a piece of paper, because we were all allowed to bring in like a you know, like a cardboard box. Whoa, sorry. Yeah, this is my $3 tripod here. We're allowed to bring in like a box about this size. And so you brought in water and like snacks and whatever. And so I had a piece of paper on there that had, you know, at every couple kilometers, it's like, make sure you have this, make sure you eat this, make sure you eat this. But that's, yeah, I have a pretty good memory. So I'm able to memorize a lot of things that I need to remember in a workout, whether it's like how I'm going to break it up, or, you know, when I'm going to take a break, or what lifts I'm going to do when. I can usually remember those things.
That already gives you a leg up. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I'm working a bit with. I'm kind of an assistant coach to an athlete. We're going to try and overwhelm her with cues in the open and see how many she can remember, and then kind of work backwards from there.
All right.
See what her breaking was. I'm working with Shelby Neal.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
And so so my coach is her coach, and I'm kind of playing like a assistant coach role.
Oh, that's
so we're
awesome.
talking about like how we can use the open to kind of, bring her to our side of how we like to do things, which is very different than how she's done things in the past. And so hopefully we can use the open in the quarters as an opportunity to kind of find that because she's an engineer, so she's, not completely like, I just like to send it, but but it's like they've got to find that sweet spot of, okay, like how many cues and how many strategic things can we feed to you while still allowing you to just be in the moment, right?
Do you think that's the next kind of evolution of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think coaching, like maybe, it's been fun already working with Shelby, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's kind of that sweet spot between like, what I'm qualified to do, like uniquely, and then also what's gonna like make me happy and help me live the life I want to live. And I'd like to help with the sport still, whether that's like PFAA or something related to that in like a perfect world. But that would probably be requiring like creating a position or something like that. Whereas the coaching route is kind of a route that's been plowed many times before. So you kind of just copy and paste what other people have done and put your flair on it and, push play. So we'll see. I don't know. Or maybe I might just smoke bomb it and just go back into business and like,
Disappear.
good luck, guys.
Yep.
Good luck with this
Peace,
process.
I'm out.
Just I do want to like I have all these notes and stuff. I would like to release like some 200-page document on like, here's how to run a competition. And just
Oh,
like,
I love
good luck.
that. I think people would buy that. I don't think you should just give it for free.
Yeah, just like I had this supple leopard, but yeah, just something like this size. It's just like a free ebook. So speaking of which, if you're listening, if you're still listening to this, people, there was a guy. If you go to the website's called howtoskate.something, and so this guy broke the 5K and the 10K indoor skating record at the Olympics. Mm-hmm. He broke the world record in both, and then he released like his 4 years of training and all of his principles.
Wow.
Han something. Anyway, super cool read. It's like that. It's just long. It's a free ebook. And he just goes into depth on everything from like, his nutrition and like why he stopped doing VO2 tests, and just like he just stripped down his training to the absolute bare essentials and just didn't listen to anyone else. And then he had these like very specific beliefs on technique that were kind of just different to what other people believed in the skating world. And yeah, it's just really, really cool read. He's just like, if I just do like 4 hours of steady state cardio a day, and then I'll do intervals at my race pace, and that's all I need to do.
Wow.
And that was like it. He just stopped doing strength training. It was like, yeah, so it's an interesting read. So I could see myself doing something like that, if nothing else, where I write a book or write an ebook where it's just like, here's a bunch of thoughts, and but we'll see.
I love it. I'd read that. My last
me too.
is, as you look ahead at the 2024 season from a standpoint from the PFAA, what are just a couple of goals or benchmarks that you would like that organization to hit as you not only continue to impact the sport, but also continue to grow?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. The PFAA is something that's actually brought me a lot of joy the last year. It was around this time last year, actually, where I was like, oh man, like, what are we going to do? What am I going to do with this thing? Like, it felt like it was floundering a bit. And I said to myself, I'm like, all right, you're going to make a push until the games. And even if it impacts your training a bit, like you just have to do it or else you regret it. So I tried to make a push, had a meeting at semis, had a meeting at the games. And I told myself, I was like, if after the games, it feels like there's no like momentum, then you can just freaking pull the plug. I haven't said this publicly anywhere. And so after the games, I was like, oh crap, there's momentum. So, and so kind of kept working, and then this Wodapalooza thing happened. And so, it's exciting to see where we are now, where we're at an interesting spot where like people are aware of the name, at least, and like generally that it's an athlete association. And so with that comes more, responsibility. And I think people will start to, if we don't control the narrative around like what we are and what we're doing and what our goals are and why, people will start to fill those things in. Like I've already seen some comments like, oh, this is the PFA's fault. And you're like, that's not even close to the scope of things that we're currently tackling nor ever will tackle. You know what I mean? Like it's someone in some countries like, oh, I don't make enough money to travel to Wodapalooza. And then they're like, where's the PFA? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this isn't, no, you know, how can we, like, what are, yeah, anyway. So, you know, I don't have a super specific answer. I think the first thing is, you know, have a really good internal and then provide some external notes on how Wodapalooza went, and, you know, give like an honest critique of what went well and what didn't go well. And I think that's something that a lot of events keep private. And then what happens is, you know, let's say you have an event like the games, right, where something goes wrong, and because there's no like public admission of that, then other events like copy that thing. It's like, no, like that didn't work, you know, like the shuttle to overhead. It's like, that was a bad event. You know what I mean? It was cool, I guess, but it was a bad event. There was a lot of things about the shuttle to overhead in 2022 that were just a bad event. And then you see other comps throughout the year like copying that format, and you're just like, please, like, stop. You know, it'd be nice if they just said like, don't do this. We tried it. You know, it's great that we tried it, but we're never doing that again. And so good wrap up of Wodapalooza is the first thing. And then honestly, it's like, you know, how can we improve the sport in general for athletes, like specifically professionals, but also, you know, intermediates and up and comers and stuff, and just try to like make that happen. And I know that sounds like really wishy-washy, but it's a combination of like helping the current events to be better and help them run, you know, as good or better comps than they've ever run. And then, you know, hopefully like strengthening those bonds between them and the athletes and them and each other, and seeing like if there's opportunities for them to collaborate in some way that's like meaningful. Another big thing is, you know, even just like media, right? Like helping you guys tell better stories and helping, you know, the media work together because there is like a bit of a void as far as like a central media source. And that was such a strength that really helped propel my career in 15, 16, 17,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like some of those YouTube stories on the CrossFit Games YouTube channel just completely like, you know, propelled me into, you know, stardom. And like, where are those same opportunities for Dallin Pepper or Jeff Adler or, you know, James Sprague, right? Like, you know, they need those opportunities because those are, you know, guys with cool stories and charismatic, and, you know, we need to get that long form content and like better reach for those athletes as well.
Yeah.
And so there's tons of problems, and I honestly can't say for certain, but part of it is, you know, I need, and the PFA needs to do a better job of like clearly defining what we're doing and what we're not doing, so that at least if people are like, where's the PFA to help me with my shoelaces? It's like, we're not doing shoelaces, you know, like that's not an area we have. And even, you know, admittedly, like right now, you know, we're going to have a very small influence on the CrossFit Inc. season. So, you know, open quarter semis games as it stands right now, we're going to have a pretty minimal influence as to how those events are run. And so, you know, if something happens there, it's like, what do you want, you know, whereas at Wodapalooza, it's like, yeah, you know, there were certain things that, you know, maybe didn't go well, and that's why we want to do a debrief and at least take ownership for them and how we can improve for next time. Right?
Well, Brent, thanks so much for taking the time, man. We always appreciate you coming in and talking about not only what's going on with you, but also the PFAA. And thanks for everything you're doing with that. I mean, I think it is definitely making a difference. And any way we can help out, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. Yeah, it's been fun. Like I said, it's you know, we have made some really nice progress in the last year, which is, it can be, you know, we're far from perfect, but it's nice to see that there is some like upward momentum, and that, you know, I think we've changed some things in like a tangible, objective way for the better, even if it's some small things. So hopefully more in another year would be nice.
Awesome. Well, we'll let you go. I'm going to open this yogurt pack because that's
nice.
Please don't
get into it. That'll help the sinuses.
yeah, right. Exactly. He's doing better already. I'm just trying to keep him like occupied right now, and I don't even want to know what the mess that I have to deal with out there is. So yeah, but you know, whatever. Could be worse.
All right.
Just gotta.
Thanks, gang. Thanks for letting me ramble. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Oh, we love to listen to you, Brent. Ramble away.
Love to keep checking in with you throughout the season when, you know, stuff, either news breaks or you guys have something you're working on. So
yeah, sounds good. I will.
Thanks, Brent.
Good.
We'll talk to you soon. All right, man. Take care.
Bye, Brent.
Brent Fikowski, what a good human being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
love having him on the show.
Yeah, he's great, and I think that, you know, the PFAA really is making a difference, slowly but surely. And I was that's why I wanted to ask him about what was kind of the plan for this year. I don't know how involved they're going to be with CrossFit, and you heard him mention they keep it more or less internal. But I know there are those conversations happening, and I hope that they are let in even more, because I think that it's going to make it better for everybody.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing, like, even if your influence is going to be a little bit, and you can improve that by a percentage each year and slowly start to pry that door open, it's something, right? Like, it's some, you keep at it, and eventually, hopefully, you have a much larger influence than anyone would have imagined further on down the line, and suddenly it feels like you've been there the entire time. It's like, what was that? Like that whole boiling a frog parable, all right?
Yeah.
You start out with lukewarm water and you increase it by a degree at the time before you know it. So
For sure. Okay. Do we have any community support we have to get to before we get to PRs and No Reps and we sign off?
we do. So we had the one that I mentioned from Trey Abelson that is still ongoing. Let me pull that up real quick. I have one other one as well from Ben Cross, who a community member from the UK, is doing a fundraiser for Manchester Children's Hospital. 1,000 burpees, 1,000 wall balls, plus 1,000 calories on the Concept 2 bike. He is doing this charity in order to help raise money, obviously, for an important cause with the Children's Hospital. And I believe I don't know if it's his son or not. I don't want to get that wrong, but someone that is obviously very close to Ben, Charlie, was a beneficiary of the Manchester Children's Hospital, and they did some tremendous work with him and getting him back to health. And so he's doing this in honor of Charlie and the Children's Hospital to raise money. He has a Just Giving page up. He's going to be doing it on Sunday, February 11th. And anyone that wants to be a part of it can support that as well. So if you go to justgiving.com and you look up Ben Cross, that should pop up, and it's the name of it is Ben's fundraiser for Manchester Children's Hospital. And there's a picture of Charlie sitting there in his bed with Grogu, or Baby Yoda, as he's affectionately known in biz as, there in bed smiling. So a good cause. Go check it out. If you're over in the UK looking for a charity to support with a little bit of sweat equity, definitely go do that. And then there was Rachel Abelson that Trey was raising money as well, as part of his bar mitzvah, to help refugee organization called Making Opportunity Count in Massachusetts. The event takes place this Saturday, the 27th. The workouts will be happening on the hour from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they're going to take place at CrossFit EXP in Leominster, Massachusetts, or you can join them online for any one of the sessions and donate at $10 per workout. He's halfway through to his goal already. If you want to check it out, go look at Rachel.Abelson on Instagram, and she'll have more info on her page there. RACHEL.ABELSON. And she has a Venmo, Rachel-Abelson too, that you can donate the $10 to, that they'll give to their cause too. He's been posting workouts. They're really well thought through. I met this kid on the road and his brother in Dubai. Awesome family that has been around the world and has seen the effect that being in a foreign place can have on people, particularly if they're a refugee. And so he's putting in some good work to support those people. So definitely go check those out.
All right. If you guys have anything you want us to share like this, please feel free to hit us up, whether it's on our personal Instagram accounts, the Talking Elite Fitness Instagram account, and make sure you include as many details as possible, because we absolutely want to send people to the right place. So good luck to those organizations, and please support them if you have a chance. So, all right, let's get into PRs and No Reps. We'll start with No Reps, and I'll begin. No Rep, the Green Bay Packers, for choking away a absolutely golden opportunity to do away with the scourge that is the San Francisco 49ers, and they just blew it. Blew it.
And now we're all losers.
And now it's another stress-filled week. I'm going to start to build the bunker in my backyard.
Oh man, come on, Detroit! Come on,
Please, Detroit, please.
I saw Rich wearing the Barry Sanders jersey in the most recent Mayhem pod. We need some of that Rich the Froning effect over in Detroit. He's going to be at the game, I think.
Well, good, because I'm glad things are going well for Rich, because it's not like that guy ever wins anything.
Well, hey, you know what? Let's just again. I think I made this reference for Infinity War with Heimdall. Just let the dark magic flow through me one more time.
Please,
just one more win.
Please
get Detroit to the Super Bowl. Save me the pain of having to listen to my buddies rant and rave about going to the Super Bowl for 2 weeks.
God, I can't imagine. Lauren, what do you got in rep?
I've no rep this before, so it seems kind of soft, but the weather, like, what the heck? I don't want to go to South Carolina and it be 30 degrees. Like, I had a lovely time there, but 30 degrees in South Carolina?
Yeah.
Maybe I just have a bad understanding of what weather is like down there during this time of year.
You do. I think it gets rather chilly. I mean, it's a nice 55 degrees where we are right now. So,
but that's mild. 30 we're not okay.
Okay. 30 degrees. Rep that. No rep that. Tommy, no rep.
I'm no repping shirts because anyone who tuned into the Bills Chiefs saw Jason Kelce.
My God.
Did you see the numbers on that game?
Oh, crazy.
Amazing.
And
he should have retired sooner.
Any beer in the greater Buffalo area, because I feel like Jason Kelce himself deleted a 30 rack on his own. He went to Pinto Ron's. He had the best time of anyone.
He's a man of the people.
In the divisional round. He went to Pinto Ron's tailgate, drank beer out of a bowling ball. He went down into the stands and pulled up a young Taylor Swift fan and introduced her to her idol. I mean, he was slamming beers after Travis's touchdown. It was great.
I saw a great photo of Jason Kelce in the box with Taylor Swift. It said, "America's sweetheart meets Taylor Swift."
Oh, so true.
Oh, that's great.
Fantastic. All right, PRs. I was gonna no rep the Buffalo Bills fan base for what they put poor Tyler Bass through. For missing that kick, but I'm going to PR the segment of the fans that rallied for him and actually donated a bunch of money to, I think, a cat rescue charity that he supports. So,
oh really?
Oh,
yeah,
that's
they're good people out there. You know, I felt terrible for that kid, and just Buffalo Bills fans in general, because they've been through so much suffering. But to turn it to something where someone has to deactivate their Instagram and over threats and stuff like that. That's going way.
I'm telling you, Buffalo Bills fans are the worst fan base. If they win, they burn down their city. They don't take care of things. Like,
great wings, though.
That's
great wings.
Go to Duff's. It's amazing.
I love to see people who, rally behind someone like that. So that's my PR. Lauren.
My PR is I signed up for the Open, and you should too.
All right.
Normally I wait until the last possible second. Oh, I think I talked about this last week, but I didn't give it a PR. But this will be, I don't know, I got to do some math. I think my first Open was 2017. So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Technically, it's 9, though, because of the year that we had to do 2.
Yeah.
So
that's still counted as the following season. So there was no Open in 2020.
Oh, you're right. You're right. So Ocho. Open Ocho.
Well, good for you.
Nice. I'm going to sign up probably
I
tomorrow.
will sign up and I will be terrible. So that's.
Can we create a TEF leaderboard?
Oh, absolutely.
I think we could.
We got to do that.
Yeah, we've pretty much had a hashtag leaderboard every year. We'll get that one going.
I got to figure out what I'm going to do with these workouts. That's going to be the problem. So,
NC Fit, baby.
Yeah. Tommy, PR.
I'm going to PR two. I'll just do one today. Genetic and ancestral testing. So I just got testing done.
Okay.
Because obviously, wife and I are looking to grow our family probably in the new year and this new year at some point. So we just wanted to have like a better understanding of genetic testing, ancestry, everything like that. And my mom really wanted me to get it done because she tried to get my dad tested to figure out what these two halves that I was getting that made our, they kept coming back that they're like couldn't get a read on them. They're like did not compute. They're like, you got alien DNA. And we're like,
wow.
And like, they just like couldn't figure it out for my dad for the testing with my dad. It kept coming back inconclusive. But so I finally got mine back, and it was just crazy the detail that they go into and seeing where all where you're from and who you are as a human. It was pretty cool to see, and it's weird that I feel like a lot of people get their ancestral data and they're like, oh, well, this is way different than what Nana told me.
Yeah.
And honestly, for me, it was almost spot on.
There you go.
Down to the region in
Wow.
Mexico, down to the region in Mexico that we're from. Like,
Nice.
Oh my God.
yeah, which technically is not Mexican, Hispanic, or Latino isn't actually a real thing, quote unquote. It's Indigenous American, right? Because what we think of as Mexicans now are a cross between Indigenous Americans and the Spaniards and Iberian Peninsula, but that's kind of brushing over. But all of the things that we've like talked about that I were growing up was like spot on. Cool. Yeah, which was hilarious. I have so much stuff in me. I'm like Heinz 57 mutt.
Dang.
I mean, I got 3.5% Swedish in me.
What?
Yeah, I'm 40% Indigenous American, which is pretty big. And the other 52% is Spanish, Portuguese, and broadly Southern European, which is like that region in the Iberian Peninsula. And then I got a little bit, like Irish in me. From the British Isles, and then I got some 4.8% sub-Saharan African. So, really expanding the globe.
You're exploring the space.
So at least my kids are going to get a nice mix, because for my wife, she was 99.8% Northern European.
Yes, that does. I'm surprised it was that low, actually.
So it was fun.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. All right.
Good stuff.
That's going to do it for us for today. Thank you again to our sponsor, Thirdsy. Head to thirdsy.com. Use the code TEF. You will save 20%. Guys, I cannot sing the praises of this stuff enough. It is an absolute game changer. You will thank us when you get it, and you're going to get better sleep. You'll get more out of the sleep you're getting. You won't take as long to fall asleep. You will sleep longer. It is a just all-around win-win, okay? Thirdsy.com. TEF saves you 20%. Big thanks to Brent Fikowski for stopping by. And we are barreling closer to the Open. We are now about, 5 weeks away?
Yeah.
Yeesh. All right. And as Lauren said, sign up. Sign up. Throw your hat into the ring.
Even if it's going to be your worst year yet.
Oh, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be awful. I know. I will not make, I'm not even going to make quarterfinals, even though it's going to be bad.
25%, I think you will.
Sean, you're going to be in a new age bracket.
My fitness is right now, Lauren. It is nowhere to be found. So I will. I'll try to cram some prep in here in the next couple of weeks and see if I can't put up a decent score. So, all right, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time to hang out. Thanks for listening. Thanks again to Brent Fikowski. Take care of each other. Be better, and we will talk to you guys next time.